voted on. That particular process is going to continue, and it could take a while because there are something like 20 clauses that are going to have to be voted on, and after all of that, then the bill finally goes through. Then, after that, after the Rajya Sabha has adopted this, it goes back to the Lok Sabha, then it goes to the states, then the president votes in it, and then the GST bill itself naturally is going to come. So, while all of that is continuing in Parliament, I'd just like to welcome a lot of our guests who've been listening to that entire speech of Arun Jaitley, trying to understand, trying to interpret exactly what's been happening. We have with us right here Surjit Bhalla, who's been analyzing all aspects of this for a long, long time. It's a pleasure to have with us Roy here, who's also been looking at it inside Parliament, will help us understand what's happening. Tom Vadakan is there from the Congress Party. Chandan Mitra is there with us. Naina Lal Kidwai. And a number of other people are going to come in and talk about it in just a couple of minutes. So I want to just start with you. Just help us understand what the process is now. So, clause by clause voting is going to take place in the Rajya Sabha. Yeah. But it's still a long process to go, and we are actually looking at implementation of the GST now only in the first week of April or thereabouts 2017. But a lot of steps have to be done now.
A lot of steps means, firstly, this will take some time in the Rajya Sabha, because there are 21 clauses. One clause is being deleted, so they have all to be voted. Then there will be 9 official amendments by the finance minister. I don't know, their ADMK had given amendment, but they have walked out.
Yeah, so they have walked out. So it's unanimous to that extent.
There should be voting for 21 plus 9.
Okay.
30 different aspects.
So that could take an hour or two. Veerappa Moily is just joining us now. So Mr. Moily, before I continue to go to the others, the Congress finally did come forward. It did support the bill, which made it more or less unanimous, though the AIADMK walked out. But I want to get your sense, Mr. Moily, on that final point that has obviously led to considerable discussion and debate on this entire question of money bill versus finance bill. Congress still seems to have voted for the bill, so the bill is through. But essentially, your concern is that what will happen if it comes eventually as a money bill, which means that now your veto power is gone. The Rajya Sabha will not have a chance to vote on this. Is that really the issue that you're having?
Yeah. No, if you read the constitutional provision, it is clearly a financial bill, not a money bill, which we have taken up this objection even earlier, when the matter came up, that when they introduced the bill in the Rajya Sabha, we have raised this objection. But despite that, I don't know, sometimes the NDA government thinks that they are the law unto themselves, constitution by unto themselves, and this is how they get into problem everywhere.
No, I should mention this, that why people are doubting. If it's taken as a money bill, then it doesn't go to Rajya Sabha.
And it's happened in the before.
It has happened on the
private member bills have also been.
It has happened in the Aadhaar bill. It has happened in case of a private member's bill.
Okay.
So that if instead it is put as a financial bill as per Article 117, then it will have to be voted in Rajya Sabha. So there remains a small point of doubt on this matter, though the finance minister has assured that he has no intention of bypassing the Rajya Sabha.
So that's what he said very clearly, which is done. Now I just want to step back a little bit and understand how exactly does this change the country, and is it, as some were saying, including members from the Congress Party, saying that this is the single most historic item of reform that this country has seen. I'm going to get everyone's reaction on that. Starting off with somebody who's here, Montek Singh Ahluwalia, somebody who 25 years ago, we were just a week or two back, we were talking about the fact that it's been 25 years since economic reforms were kicked off. Not much has happened. Is this as big as that? Potentially?
This is, without doubt, a major indirect tax reform. I mean, it's of the various things that are currently at different stages of the pipeline. There's no doubt that the GST bill is the single most important. I mean, it's been around since 2006, which is when Chidambaram introduced it. I mean, it's a pity that it's taken that long, but I think if it gets done, it'll be a good indication that Parliament...
If it gets done, I thought it's done now.
Well, when I left, they were about counting, so I don't know what the latest
is. No, it's done. It's like, I think the bill is through.
Well,
now, clause by clause. The constitutional amendment is through. And if they can get the constitutional amendment through, I'd be astonished if something else happens.
We should count it
Okay.
as a demonstration that although politics is very often confrontational and there are logjams, you've got both the major parties on the same page on this very important thing.
Eventually.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about the politics that why did it take so long and the rest of it. But Sunil Alagh, who's also been there patiently listening in to all that's been happening. And I know, Sunil, you got to leave us. You did hear that entire speech. Momentous day, one of the most dramatic days, or no?
Yeah, absolutely, because I think that, well, for the first time you had a chance in the Lok Sabha with 283 seats to get a constitutional thing passed through Lok Sabha without a problem, and Rajya Sabha just didn't debate it. What I loved today was the way Mr. Jaitley and Mr. Chidambaram debated it in a mature fashion, without interruption. I mean, forget about the GST bill. I'm most impressed if Rajya Sabha debates all the issues the way they did it today. I think the nation is moving forward substantially. I mean, I wish without running into the well and jumping and breaking chairs and everything else, this has moved beautifully. I think there are some issues. The GST bill is still a long way to go in the sense before the consumer actually gets the benefits. It'll probably be somewhere in 2018, the pace at which it's going for the full impact to come. There will be hurdles, there's no question about it. When something like this starts, even in April or June, the first 6 months you will face a lot of hurdles. But if we are moving in the right direction and 29 finance ministers have not unanimously, but the bulk of them have agreed, everybody's agreed that this will finally lead to better collection, lower consumer prices and freer movement of goods. Now, if all of them have agreed to this, it obviously is no longer just a political issue, it's become an economic issue.
Okay.
And that's good for ease of business, for the consumer as well.
Okay, can I just welcome three, economic thinkers who will help us understand this. Siddharth Birla is with us, Nana Lal Kidwai is with us as well, and I'm going to get Rajeev Dimri to take us through some of the fine print. But Siddharth Birla, help us understand what this means for the economy. I mean, a couple of years back, in fact 4 or 5 years back, people were saying, oh, this could add a percentage point or 2 percentage points to growth. Is that as big as that? Is it, or is that overstating it? Are prices going to go up? What's going to happen for all of us?
Good evening, Vikram, and good evening to all the panelists.
By the way, there's the vote. 197 ayes, 0 no's, so it's unanimous. I mean, AIDMK walked out, but otherwise it's unanimous. GST, that's the vote you can see. Yeah, carry on, sorry.
I think, these were best guess numbers, and I don't really know how sound the data was, but the sense that came out of a lot of analysis was that it could add 1.5 to 2% to the growth numbers once the full GST kicked in. And much of that would actually be through the capture of transactions and revenues that were not really being captured by the taxation system. So it's not that the output would go up by that much, but the total money impact on the economy would be about 1.5 to 2%.
Much easier to do business. That's the main point. It's much easier to do business now for anybody. You can send stuff from one part of the country to the other.
If I can break it in, no, certainly easier to do business, but more important, India's will be converted into one market compared to 29 pockets. Let's put it this way. And certainly there'll be less cascading taxation, there'll be much easier movement of goods, and I think the whole system will become more predictable.
Okay.
So it's ease of goods, it's ease of marketing, and it's a long-term stability factor, and India will really come into its own as one market.
All right,
so
Nana Lal
that's the really biggest game changer.
Right, Nana Lal Kidwai, interestingly, just as Europe seems to be going in the other direction with Brexit and who knows who else is going to want to leave Europe, in a sense India has come together and now is demonstratively one market. So to that extent, there's also a major psychological impact that's going to play out when people are looking at India.
I really think so, and we've seen what was an excellent debate in Rajya Sabha today. I agree with Sunil that this quality of discussion and conciliatory conversation is something that has been much missed in the past. I would just say that we should not forget that there are risks even as we go forward, in that the way the GST bill moves needs to be watched closely. The risks in terms of near-term inflation can be a worry. Although in the long term, I have no doubt that it adds to the GDP of the country. It is something that many of us have pushed very hard, and that in the long term, inflation comes off, and the cost to the consumer, to the Aam Aadmi on the road, exactly as Mr. Chidambaram said, indirect tax hits every one of us, is a big benefit.
That of course ties up to the question of what the
really
rate is going to be. That ties into the question of what the rate is going to be, which we are going to, of course, continue to debate. It was debated all day in Parliament. By the way, the voting that you're seeing are amendment by amendment. That voting is going to continue. Each clause there's going to be voting on, and by and large, the ayes are continuing to have it. Sujit Bhalla, plus points.
Vikram, one quick word before I leave.
Okay, Sunil, quickly. Yeah.
See, people are asking what will happen to the poorest of the poor with this. You've got to take products like, and I come back to biscuits because I'm involved with it, you get a 4 rupee packet. We pay about 30 or 35% in terms of taxes. If that comes to even 17 or 18%, and with the competition in the market, toothpaste, soaps, all this average thing for the poor man will come down. Of course, service tax is for the middle income and the upper income, perhaps it will go up. And the budget will then have to say, if each month I've been spending 100 rupees, something will go up, something will go down, and if I can save 10, it will work in that direction. But the poor will get the benefit almost straight away because of competition and the massive amount of taxes of octroi and everything else. There's no doubt in my mind that the poor will benefit.
Yes and no. We're going to get Mr. Dimri to tell us. I guess that also, Sunil, depends to some extent on what the final rate is, because theoretically the rate could be something which means that they...
No, but whatever the rate it is, cannot be, it has to be lower than 30%, no? 30 or 35% is what you're paying. So even if it's 18, 19, you will still bring it down by 10%. That's a lot. That's a lot.
All right.
For the average poor guy, I'm talking about those products.
All right. Sunil, thanks. Sujit Bhalla, impact on the economy, impact on what is going to be more expensive, what's going to be less expensive. Is the average person going to be better off, or are you going to have a spike in inflation, as some are fearing?
You know, I don't know the last time when there was a major tax reform in any country that anybody talked about inflation. If, for example, you raise the tax rate, that particular, if you will, price goes up, it enters technically into the inflation rate, but as Montek and others will tell you, it has an impact on the fiscal deficit, which goes down, etc. So there is really no connection, and no connection should be attributed to, if you will, the GST and inflation. Inflation is a function.
It could affect what some prices are a year later. Fiscal deficit all will take time to work itself out.
Inflation is much, you should really be concerned about what happens to the monsoon and therefore what happens to the price of pulses.
Yeah.
If you're concerned about inflation.
Okay.
So therefore,
let me put it this way. Plane tickets could be more expensive. That's the way people are going to look at this. Some things will be more expensive. Services will go up. Haircut could be more expensive. All sorts of things that will be worrying people, right? What's going to be more expensive? What's going to be less expensive?
No, I think, look, what we should be celebrating is that inflation today is somewhere around 5%.
Okay.
Inflation 2 years ago was somewhere around 10, 11%. And this is a magnitude of the fall is one of the greatest that any economy has seen, if you will, excluding oil prices, and oil prices really didn't decline that much.
So prices not that bigger.
So therefore, let's take inflation out of the picture. It's, if you will, it's for the...
spend the better part of the day worrying about inflation and rates. What do we take it out of the picture? That's all.
What I'm saying is the GST has nothing to do with inflation.
Dramatic impact on the economy, yes or no?
So therefore now we come to what is the impact on the economy. And I think Siddharth had mentioned it indirectly. Look, what this will do, or should do, and we expect it to do, is to really decrease the amount of black money generated. So the guys who are going to lose are the ones not paying taxes. But really, they will also gain because they will get the taxes that are, if you will, that they have paid for.
Montek, by the way, do you agree with that? Significant impact on black money?
I think it certainly have a positive impact. But you know, the real impact is the unification of the market, getting rid of distortionary taxation, you know, improving our position vis-a-vis imports. I mean, right now, you know, many domestic producers bear taxes which the importers don't.
Okay.
With the GST, every import will have to pay the GST rate of tax. This whole level playing field issue, once and for all, will be over. But let me say, I think there's one other important consequence which we should really celebrate. I mean, I'm really looking forward to the time when finance ministers don't get up and read out a list of changes of indirect taxes. You know, if you go back, people would say, I'm sure everybody under the age of 10 will be happy that I'm lowering the rate on ice cream. That's gone
forever.
And I sincerely hope that the next
perhaps
budget...
the single most important part of this.
Absolutely. We are the only country where people will read out these little... Most people don't know what is the item on which the tax rate is being changed. Is it a solid, is it a liquid, or a gas?
Especially when you come to the
That's
chemicals. Polyethylene, polynitrate is up by 0.5% and it's there in the budget speech. Thank God those days are over.
People have not drawn attention to this. It will clarify everything in people's minds.
Okay.
That's not the job of finance minister.
Clarification is really important. All right. I have Mohammed Salim with me. I have Sambit Patra here. I have Veerappa Moily here. I'm going to come to some of the political aspects of this, that if this is as great as it is, why on earth did it take us 10 years to get this through?
That's the question.
That's the first question I've got to ask you. But before I come to all of you, Rajeev Dimri, who's here with us, I'm going to just try and get you to take us through and slightly help us with some of the granularity of the questions that I was asking. When you are looking at this, and of course we still don't know what the rate is going to be, but let's assume it, for the sake of argument, it's 18%. Are most people going to be suddenly feeling things are more expensive or less expensive? Because frankly, a lot of the people who are watching this saying this is all very interesting, this is all very exciting. Hamare liye kya hoga?
So I'll answer it at two quick levels. One, if it is truly a revenue neutral rate based exercise, if today the collective governments were extracting or charging rupees 100 as total taxes, if in the new system, if the total tax burden still remains 100 on the commerce, on the economy, then it may get redistributed. Your telephone bills may go up by 3% and your ice cream may come down by 5%. That's possible. So to say I was buying...
What's going to happen? I'm seeing all the viewers sitting and saying, do I care more about my phone or my ice cream? So should I celebrate or not?
The question is, if the government is only taking 100 away from the commerce, then the burden may get redistributed, because that's part of the reason why GST is being introduced. Manufacturing sector is overtaxed and services is lower, and therefore to equate that, so it will get redistributed. So if you say, will my telephone bill go up? Possibly. Will my flight ticket go up? Possibly. But we don't know what are the taxes that the airlines are not getting credit of, and maybe the cost will come down.
Okay, so we have to work a lot of this through.
Correct.
What do you think is going to be the revenue neutral rate, just out of curiosity? I mean, I know I'm putting you on the spot and it's going to take
and especially in the company in which I'm probably least qualified to say that the revenue neutral rate will have to be based on which items should I tax automobiles at 40%? Should our demerit rate be twice that of a merit rate? Those things will be determined.
And of course, it's worth noting some items are out of this. Petrol, all of those things, crude is out of it. All right, I'll just come back to you and let's just we'll return to some of the economic implications in just a couple of minutes. But let's just touch on the politics for a minute or two. Veerappa Moily and Sambit Patra, I'm going to throw it to both of you, and then Mohammed Salim as well. If this is such a big moment, why have we had to wait for 10 years for this? Sambit, you blocked it earlier. Congress has been blocking it. We should celebrate today that political parties have got together. It was a good day in Parliament. Lots of conciliatory speeches. It was wonderful to hear the finance minister giving his speech, giving due credit to members of the opposition and vice versa. So a really good day today there in Parliament. Could have happened earlier, I guess, is what many would be feeling. Sambit, you want to have a first crack at that?
Vikram, you're absolutely right. First, my good wishes. Yes, Vikram, and I think I should get the first one because I'm the youngest amongst the politicians and they're more knowledgeable than me as far as the experience in politics is concerned. First, my good wishes to everyone on the panel. It's a big day and we have joins from the field of economy over here as well as from politics also. And the best part as far as I am concerned, as a young politician today, I saw something which was missing since long. The reconciliatory tone amongst all the political parties, the beauty of the debate, the knowledge that flowed from the debate. In fact, if such is the essence of Rajya Sabha, every time I tell you, people of this country will learn a great deal and start respecting the Rajya Sabha a great more.
So, Sambit, today,
secondly,
Sambit is 9 o'clock right now.
Why not?
Sambit is 9:20 right now. This is normally the time when you would be shouting at a member of the opposition, find the Congress party. I mean, Veerappa Moily said maybe you wouldn't shout at him, he's really senior. But this is normally the time when you'd be shouting at some member of the Congress party or some member of the Communist party. So today, for a change, is it time for you to really look at them also and saying, thank you guys for cooperation and getting this through? And maybe all of you should be complimenting each other. You've done something good for the country.
No, definitely a big thanks to them. I cannot come out of the television channel, or I could have hugged both my political friends and Mr. Salim, who had been with me on the few other channels. The day this parliamentary session, the monsoon session began, would in fact agree with me that the very first day I had said that, well, we have to work together and we should move together. No fighting as far as GST is concerned. But I just wanted to, I was listening to the great people on your channel, I'm no match to them. But I would say that, well, whether the question, we should celebrate or we should not celebrate, we should celebrate, because remember, simplicity is always better than complicity. It is always better than complicated ways. And today what has happened is, in this mother of all reforms, we have simplified the way of indirect taxation, which was long pending. And the simplification will definitely get something to our pockets, will get something in our way of life. 17 taxes becoming one tax. A whole country, I mean, someone rightly spoke today, I think it was Mr. Poddar, the MP from Rajya Sabha, from Jharkhand, who said that today the invisible Berlin Wall, which was encircling all these 29 states, they stand dissolved.
Yeah, it's been broken to a certain extent. India today truly a union of states, and I think that's a point that needs to be made. It's really a union state. Veerappa Moily.
But at the end, 10 seconds of note of caution. 10 seconds of note of caution. It is just the beginning. We should not celebrate in a way that from tomorrow inflations would decrease, because a lot of expectations that will be raised from these debates may be counterproductive. We have to wait 18 months to 24 months to see what the results are on the ground.
Yeah, I was about to come to that, and I think that's one of the things that was discussed in Parliament at great length. What's going to happen to inflation? Do remember there's some elections coming up. Veerappa Moily, so Sambit Patra, even though it is, the 9 o'clock slot, saying that if he could, he would get out of the screen and come and hug you and hug Mohammed Salim, which would be, rather dramatic for the 9 o'clock, slot. But Mr. Moily, great conciliation today in Parliament. A lot of statesmanship, I think, has also been shown on all sides over the last, few days and weeks. Are you feeling this could have also happened a little earlier, or do you think everything has its own time and place?
Of course, there are all wishes which should have happened 10 years back, which should have happened. That was how we moved on from the Congress party. But anyway, this is not the time to look back, but it is only to look forward. And I think ultimately there are three parties to this entire transformational taxation. There's one is union government, the state government, but at the same time we should not forget there are people, common people, ultimately who have to bear the brunt of the taxation. And I think, of course I was finance minister when the VAT came into existence from Karnataka. Then, everybody was afraid that compensation is needed, this much, that much. Then ultimately everybody said it will add up to the inflation. Nothing happened. VAT, went on very smoothly. I don't think, even 1 year installment of the compensation was paid to any states. That's how it managed. Even this will happen ultimately.
All right.
But what is important is there are certain very important homework to be done. The roadmap will have to be properly prepared. All these things will have to be done. I hope that the government will do that.
Okay,
Mr.
Mr.
It's a great day, I must tell you that. And I again wish that it should have come 10 years back. It has been, I don't want to blame anybody, because it's not the time to blame, but it only to rejoice that such a great transformational tax is coming to India.
Mr. Moily, thanks a lot for that comment. So Congress, they also, I mean, you should just hear the mood of conciliation that you're seeing right now. It's a complete love fest on all sides. Let me see.
Haven't seen it for how long?
Yeah, I haven't seen this in a long time. So let me go across and see if it's coming from the states as well. And Amit Mitra now joining us from from West Bengal, Finance Minister, of course, there in West Bengal, somebody who's been championing this. Mr. Mitra, you must have been really dreaming about this when you were in your FICCI days, and now, of course, as leading one of the states. At the end of the day, the bill that we've got, we can keep on quibbling about the fact that maybe it's a little late and maybe it could be even better, but at the end of the day, big day for India. And do you think at the end of the day the states have also got what they really wanted?
I think I must first say to you, Vikram, this journey for our party began in 2009 when Mamata Banerjee put this GST bill in the manifesto of the party, which parties had not even thought of putting anything like this, like the GST in the manifesto. That journey has arrived at one major step. Let's remember that there are three components to this process. First is what is going to happen to the common people due to GST. Two is what will it mean for the revenues of the state and the fiscal health of the states. And three is what does it mean for the nation as a whole. What is very important for this constitutional amendment, and let's not forget that the next step after this will be 50% state legislatures have to vote. Third step, which is very critical, is for the bill to come back, and as you heard in the debate, should it be a money bill, should it be a finance bill, issues are strewn all over. Now, as far as the people's interest is concerned, the principle that has been defined by the MPART committee, which I had the fortune of chairing, was that there must be a direct impact on the people in terms of lowered inflationary process due to lowered tax incidence. So very important is a single tax, a single country with a relatively low rate of GST, which as a principle, so that common people of this country will benefit. Two, what will happen to the state revenues? Very important. If it is too low, you will have a problem with the state revenues. And three, what happens to the nation? Perhaps the biggest reform in the world today. Canada may have had it, much smaller country. Malaysia has had it, several other countries. But a country of India's size with federal polity. I'm proud today of the 2009 when this went into the Trinamool manifesto. Well, okay, now all parties have come together with 197 to 0.
Yeah, but 205 to 0 is the way the voting is happening in all the amendments. So, Dr. Mitra, perhaps today you can also give credit to everyone else in Parliament who've also really helped in pushing it.
Absolutely. Today it's a unified.
Okay.
This is a unified day today where there's been uniformity in Parliament towards a gigantic reform in the country, and I congratulate all political parties present in this great democracy.
Okay, so before you leave us, just any of the main issues that are going to, I think, still remain. There is still some time to go. We are going to have 7 or 8 really hectic months. All sorts of things have to be done. What's going to happen to the IT backbone? Are we going to be ready to collect everything? What's going to be the rate? Those bills have to come. Lots of activity still remains to be done. But the toughest part, in your view, is it over now? Or is there still going to be a large amount of fighting over what the rate is and things like that?
No, I think there's a big step. I tell you, the biggest step that has been taken is when MPART committee of all political parties came together and said, Parliament shall make a law. Never happened in the history before. May appears to be shall, but we said, why not shall? Two is, for 5 years, you know what the wording earlier was?
Yeah.
Up to 5 years, which means any time during 5 years it could have been discontinued.
Okay.
These are very big, giant steps. Now the next is the issue raised by my colleague in the Parliament, Mr. O'Brien, which is 1.5 crores as the cut-off point, where below which the small businesses will have single authority, whereas above 1.5 it can be both center and state. What's called dual control. I think this is something on which there will be a struggle in the future.
I don't think the finance minister was sounding very dismissive, and when Derek O'Brien raised that point, he sounded as if he was well, broadly sympathetic, but I guess there are many are split between cup and lip. So
yes, and I think he mentioned the empowered committees consultation across political parties at least 5 times.
Okay.
So I think the empowered committee will have a huge amount of homework to do in the future.
All right. Well, Dr. Mitra, many thanks for joining us. Many congratulations. As you said, you chaired that empowered committee. So
Vikram, may I just add?
Yeah.
This is a victory also not only for the common people, but the small and micro businesses of India who are part of that common people.
Okay.
And of course the big businesses who become a chain. So it's a win-win-win.
All right.
For all the people, the businesses, and for the nation as a whole.
All right. Well, Dr. Mitra, thank you so much for joining us, and once again, many congratulations. You must be seeing a sense of personal triumph out there. Like Naina Rakidbhai is about to leave us, so before I come to Mohammed Salim, Naina, let me just try and get some final other thoughts to you. That voting is continuing, and it's interesting that the eyes are going up, so maybe there were people who had gone out to take a break and are coming back and voting, but just about everything is unanimous right now, 203 ayes to 0 noes. This is clause by clause voting. Remember, that has to happen. Yeah, Naina Rakidbhai, quick thoughts from you on this.
Nobody's allowed to go out.
So clearly a time for celebration as we're hearing, but we do have to look as usual at execution as we go forward. And even as we look at the tax, let's not forget that the efficiencies that come from quicker movement of goods, where in India that goes from something that can take 280 kilometers a day to transport goods versus in the US, which would take 800, would cover 800 kilometers in that same day. We need to work to that efficiency so that we can get our businesses to be efficient, to be export competitive, and as Montek suggested, also to bring the import side of the equation in a way that businesses can compete. Okay. So very positive
really,
a bill.
That's a very important point. That's a very important point. Let me throw that to Siddharth Birla as well and to you. When we're looking at the benefits that are going to come of GST, many of these are benefits that you only start to realize once it's actually out there. Just the speed of being able to send goods from one part of the country to the other, because now you're no longer necessarily going to have trucks stopping every time they cross a state border to be paying octroi and to be paying bribes and to be having somebody coming and saying, I want to impound your truck, stay here the night, and all of that sort of stuff. That just it goes overnight.
Certainly that is going to have a very big impact, and like I said, that is all part of being one market. I mean, effectively it's like selling within the same state. And I think, but if you give me half a minute, I think the real proof of the pudding is going to come in the rate, the revenue neutral rate. And here I think the government will have to make some very important political choices also as to what is a merit good, what's not a merit good, and what's the kind of buffer that they need to also keep in case they have to compensate the states for which they've guaranteed them against loss of revenue for 5 years. And so I've been looking at it, because if the rates are not right, you also need to have a rate which encourages compliance. If the rates are going to be high, they are also not going to yield the kind of benefit that we are all talking about. So I think, there's an optics, there is a sweet spot somewhere where the rate can come. And in my personal opinion, I don't know exactly what the FICCI office bearers are today thinking about it, that there should be a possibility of moderation of the rates as time goes by, rather than say that, listen, we've lost revenue and we need to jack up the rate. But so I think these are 2 or 3 of the things that...
typically we've often seen this in the country, that when you start having moderate rates, better compliance, if it's simpler, you increase compliance, and therefore the actual rates themselves can come down because you're not having that much leakage, you're not losing money, people are paying, and it just becomes much easier to collect. So hopefully that virtuous cycle will start to kick in. Would you agree with that, Montek, that the question of rates, of course, is really critical out here, but maybe possible to have a lower rate than people are fearing?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm surprised that in some of the discussions, people are talking about 20% and 22%.
I've seen
Quite
27%
frankly,
being spoken about as a
in my view, very humbling.
27 is the present rate.
That is absolutely absurd. Arvind Subramaniam had done a pretty good technical study with a lot of support from NIPFP and people like that. They came to the conclusion that the revenue neutral rate would be a combined rate of 15%.
Which is not much more than service taxes right now. So
Yes,
maybe
that,
haircuts,
in my view,
maybe haircuts won't be more
that's-
expensive than after
yeah,
all.
well, as you can see, haircuts is not something I worry about.
But,
For your sake, I hope they don't come. But you know, the important thing is, this is something between now and November somebody should think about. It would be a grotesque mistake to pitch the rate too high, and the pressure for that is going to come from the states. Because all the state finance secretaries and the state finance ministers are worried whether state revenues will go down. So I think the centre needs to persuade them about the merits of the Subramanian report. And if they do that, then 15 is a pretty good rate.
What 15 is you think going to be the rate finally?
No, that's what I think it should be. That's what Subramanian's report says.
That's better than what the Congress has been pushing for a cap. Where do you think the rate is going to end up?
I think very close to what Dimri said, but let me just finish and take off from where he was alluding to. Look, we saw Mitra himself, a state finance minister, head of the Empowered Committee, saying that the rate shouldn't be very high. So I don't think that's going to be or should be too much of a problem. The states want, but one of the leading states, if you will, one of the biggest states, their own finance ministers pitching for the rate to be low. There are two studies really on what the rate, revenue neutral rate is likely to be or should be even. One study was done in 2009 by the Manmohan Singh government, which reached, if you will, by Arvind Modi, and that's available on the web, etc., which said something around 12% was a revenue neutral rate. It's all there in black and white for the last 7 years.
There's
you
a lot
have
to celebrate already. You don't need to. You don't need to overdo it.
No.
There's enough to celebrate today.
No,
let's not overdo it now. 12%, all taxation comes down.
As
all problems are
Montek
solved.
rightly said or alluded to, that a most recent study combining everything, this, that, whatever, came to 16%. And I really think history, and we'll meet again in 2 years from now. History will, if you will, point to the fact that even 16% was higher than the revenue neutral rate.
But okay, that's really interesting. Let me now get all the political voices into this, because eventually that's where the decision is going to come from. Mohammed Salim, I haven't come to you yet. So, big day today, but obviously indirect taxation has historically always been considered one of the more regressive of taxation. So, if you want to be...
is saying this today.
Sorry?
Even Chidambaram is saying this
Even
today.
Chidambaram is saying this today, and you've been saying it for a long time, that indirect taxation should be low because it hurts the poor more than it hurts the rich, and so therefore you should try and keep it low. Is that the big remaining question for you? Is that been one of the big questions in your mind when you said you've obviously been supporting GST for a long while?
From the beginning.
From the very beginning you supported it, you never had an issue with it. But would you like to see the rates at the levels that are being spoken about here? Those are among the lower ends of what I've been hearing.
I think they have the expertise and the know-how also to arrive at a decision. But from the very beginning we are saying this, in our country it's lopsided, direct and indirect taxes. So naturally it has to come down. Now today also it was referred to R&R, some people 15.5 or something like that. What we wanted is assurance from the finance minister, because this all euphoria being generated is one beaten, twice shy. Whether this benefit is going to be enjoyed by the commoners and common people, that depends on the rate of the tax. Of course, the tax revenue will be collected more. States will also be benefited. Business will also be benefited. Hazards will be less. Goods and services will move around across. But at the last end, this what you used to say our trickle-down effect. So what is going to be effect? And then you have to keep this at the minimum level. And I think Arvind Subramanian has done this work, and government is having this information. And broadly now, there is a consensus between the opposition and the ruling party. Now it's up to the state government.
I mean, the Congress obviously wanted first to say 18 should be the cap in the constitution bill, and that was not agreed to. And I think the Congress also recognized that it. Yeah, that was a cap, but then the Congress also recognized it couldn't have been there in the rate. Sambit, let me just throw that to you, because look, it's clearly a big day for the economy. It clearly is a major reform forward. Businesses will do well, everything else will do well. But the crucial question on whether individuals are going to be personally benefited or not benefited, and what that does to prices, does depend upon the rate. So Any thoughts that you've been hearing, any talks that you've been hearing on what the rate perhaps should be?
No, surely I would not be hearing what the rate should be. Doyens in your channel have not heard, how can I hear it? But in fact, Mr. Arun Jaitley today, when he was delving on the topic, categorically mentioned that there are guiding principles to determine the rate. The rate should be in such a way that it should be beneficial to the common man, and it should have enough kitty for the center and the state to expend. So naturally there are guiding principles, and they would be taken into account when the rates are decided. But as far as the common man is concerned, I'm sure that the common man would be benefited in a number of ways. I mean, what Mrs. Kidwai delivered just before she left was extremely important. What you and me as common man, whenever we travel out of Delhi see, is a long queue of trucks waiting to enter into the city. And Mrs. Kidwai was rightly pointing out that 280 kilometers is the average Indian truck travel in India, you know, to enter from one state to other in single day. Whereas in the US it is 800 kilometers. Just imagine 280 kilometers and 800 kilometers. So that is the amount of petrol, that is the amount of logistics, the inventory that the government per truck is going to save. So naturally all this is going to trickle down to the poorest of poor in the country, but with a caution that this is not going to happen from tomorrow, so people should not have raised expectations. Definitely one very important thing that's going to happen is that manufacturing is going to get a boost. So the promise of employment is also that we had promised during our during our election days, surely is going to be recognized in a bigger way. And surely, as I pointed out, that evasion of tax would also be prevented, so revenue boost would also be there. So there are a number of positive points, but the biggest thing today is let's sit down and let's allow all this to settle down first. Let's gather everything rather than thinking that tomorrow would be the best day. It's going to come gradually in days to come.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to pause thinking of that. It has now passed. Let's just go back to Parliament. All amendments are through.
It is still there. Members and media personnel are requested to go to room number 70, first floor in Parliament House. Officials and staff in room number 73 and 74. Now then packed dinner, central hall, snack bar. All are requested to avail yourself the facility of dinner. Yes, all are requested. Now the House stands adjourned till 11 a.m. on Thursday, the 4th August 2016.
All right, so let's come back there. So one major announcement, which is of course that GST has passed. Minor announcement also that there's dinner available for everybody in Parliament. So, I mean, I'm sorry guys, I'm not offering that to you here in the studio, but maybe just afterwards. So there is dinner out there. So that's it. All amendments are through. GST passed unanimously. I think I saw some no's on one of the schedules, but otherwise unanimous, other than the AIADMK walking out. So frankly, time for us to all put our hands together, ready to clap and to applaud each other and applaud the entire country, all politicians. Major reform is through. Virappa Moily, you know, we were just been sort of trying to take stock of what some of the possible, you know, what all the benefits are going to be, and we can continue to list them at great length. For the Congress party now, you have, after having opposed the GST in its form for the last 7-8 months, you have come forward. And by virtue of being among those and making it therefore unanimous, you therefore have entitled yourself to take a part of the credit. What's going to be your big battle going forward? Are you going to now for the next 3 or 4 months really argue with the government on what the rate should be? Or are there other major issues that you're going to be talking about?
Yeah, in fact we are very happy that this has happened today. Of course, a lot of work will have to be done, and I think the central point is that, you know, the states will be interested in getting more taxes. Union will also be happy to ride over it. But ultimately, the consumer, the common people, I think all of them should concentrate on that. We are interested in that, and if that happens, I think things should be very good, and this is going to be a great revolutionary step taken by the Parliament.
All right, this money bill, finance bill issue, which of course caused a lot of heat and dust today, is that something that you are going to continue to insist upon and hold the, I mean, the finance minister didn't give a categorical assurance, I have to say, but it was spoken about. He sort of indicated that let's see what actually comes forward. Is that something that you're going to be insisting on going forward?
No, the question is that, such mistakes should not happen in future. That is important. But underlying the fact that, we have come to a consensus and we should, take forward this bill, I don't think that will be an obstruction for passing the bill even in the Lok Sabha. But at the same time, I think the finance minister would have to give an assurance that in future such circumventing the constitutional provisions is not a good practice and not a sound practice. It should not happen in future.
Okay, so that Billah, I just wanted to touch upon one or two other aspects of this. See, today, if you were to look at the stock markets, maybe for global factors, stock markets interestingly today were down 287 or 290 points, which means just proves that you never know what the markets are going to do. Here, GST is about to be passed in the evening, biggest day for reform in 30 years, and the stock markets go down. And all of last week they were going up for no rhyme or reason. So I know we can't completely understand what the stock markets are going to do, but in the sense of its impact on the animal spirits of the Indian economy, to what extent do you think this is a transformational movement? And certainly from the point of view of this government, one of a really big moment, but do you think this is one of those moments that we're going to look back at and saying, this perhaps is what took India from 6%, 7% towards 8, 9%. That was the day. We will remember it, August the 3rd.
I think it has the potential to be remembered, that's for sure. I'll take 15 seconds on the stock market. The stock market always buys low and sells high, or at least that's what they try to do. So I think they had fair amount of confidence that it'll get passed today. So maybe that's why they sold at the peak. Yeah. That's just my
Buy
guess.
on the rumor, sell on the news.
But
maybe that's what they've been doing, yeah.
But seriously, I mean, in terms of the animal spirits, I mean, okay, GST is still far away, and as I think Samvit also rightly pointed out, it's going to take about a year and a half before all the niggling problems really settle down and we see the full benefits of GST implementation flowing to the manufacturing sector. It'll hit, the results on the service sector and on the direct consumer will be immediate because they'll start paying the endpoint GST right away. But for the benefits to flow into the chain may take some time. And Indian investment scenario is as yet not very good. So I don't think that the GST will do enough to trigger animal spirits when they are not there. But on the other hand, I think the feel-good factor and the optics of the situation, that the GST has been hanging for such a long time. Yes, the Congress introduced it, but this government was serious about getting it through. And with absolute majority in the lower house of parliament, yes, people understand the upper house, but they sort of were looking at this with a bit of disappointment that such a strong government couldn't get the GST through, so how will India ever become one market? So I think to that extent, whether on the global stage or on the Indian stage, I think it's been a tremendous achievement. And I think again, the quality of debates, the participation and the actual contribution that has been brought about in the houses has actually gone a long way to dispel some of the negativity about our political processes.
Yeah, and I guess that the message goes out internationally that at a time when many countries are actually scoring own goals. Britain obviously comes to mind already, but
absolutely,
who knows, America could be coming up next in November, but at a time when many countries are scoring own goals.
Hit wicket on the part of the British.
Yeah, the British were hit wicket, the Americans, and we don't know what they're going to do in November, but who knows, Europe in general. So a time when India said, look, we can come together, even though we're a democracy, and we can get everybody together in Parliament, and we can actually take an important step of reform is therefore a positive. So I just wanted to ask you, immediate benefits any in the next few months, or will we have to wait for April to start seeing any of the benefits coming through?
April onwards, because today ends hopefully the politics around GST, but the real detailing where the taxpayer and the tax authorities will meet, which has been part of our challenge, this very adversarial environment, those things will start rolling out. So details will emerge, but the benefits will start flowing from April onwards. In fact, there might be a period of transition because such an event will require some time to walk from one point to another. So benefits will start flowing much later.
All right, Montek, I think we have almost started out of time, but I am going to give you the final word.
Well, a very good day.
Sum up the day for us.
I think we should congratulate all sides of the House. It is true that around the world, democracies don't look very functional. And this
ours
is
often hasn't looked functional either, but
the fact is that what many people described as a deadlock has been broken, So I agree with what everyone has said. Everyone deserves to be congratulated. It's also true, by the way, that it will take time. That's not the important thing. I mean, if you were today thinking of investing, let's say, in a logistics business in India, would you not assume that these little glitches will be taken care of when the big thing's been overcome? So whether it comes on April 1 or September 1, the message is out. It's a different world as far as domestic indirect tax is concerned. And you know, this point about imports, the GST really gives a level playing field to domestic producers vis-a-vis imports. A big signal.
All right.
So I'm positive.
So a big signal, a big day, and if somebody was looking at India and they were trying to figure out what's the future of India and which direction is India headed to and what do we make of this country? Well, today was a really good day to be looking at India. It was a great day to be watching Parliament. It was wonderful to see those debates, the quality of debate, the quality of the speeches, the nature of conciliation, and yes, at the end of the day, unanimously, well, one party walked out, but unanimously, Indian Parliament and the Rajya Sabha came forward and passed a very important reform, one of the most historic days for reform, and therefore one of the most landmark days that we have actually seen here in India. Let's see how it all pans out going forward. Lots and lots of niggling points will have to be done, but the big work has been done, and I think everyone deserves congratulations for that. Thank you all so much for having joined us. Thanks for watching.